It's member-supported Hawaii Public Radio, all things considered. I'm Dave Lawrence, and thanks for listening. Today on the show, we get a chance to speak with a band that's heading to town. Lead singer of up-and-coming rock act Greta Van Fleet. Band had 2 number 1 songs last year, topping the mainstream rock charts, and it's a Michigan band. They've got a big buzz around them right now for their hard-rocking, bluesy, original material. They've actually sold out in advance here in Honolulu. And their music's earned them comparisons to Led Zeppelin, and when asked what young and upcoming rock bands that he really likes, you can watch a video online. It shows Zeppelin singer Robert Plant offering these guys are Led Zeppelin 1, and he brought them up all on his own, too. Quite a compliment from the Golden God himself. And the band includes 3 brothers, a vocalist, guitarist, bassist, plus a 4th member on drums. And again, it's 2 area dates, August 23rd at the MAC. As of this moment, there are still some tickets available, but Friday, August 25th at the Republic appears to be sold out. And they have a catchy, recently released new single we'll also talk about with this singer. When the Curtain Falls is the name of the tune. We're grateful to welcome from Greta Van Fleet, Josh Kiska, as a special guest today on ATC. Aloha and mahalo, Josh.
Hey, good morning, Dave.
Thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a huge thrill. And have you been to Hawaii before?
No, this will be my first time.
I
do have some family over there, though.
Oh, wow. What's that all about?
Well, an uncle on my mother's side. He just really likes it there, I guess. I mean, imagine there's nobody that couldn't, right?
Right. Where's he live in the state?
I think it's Maui. He's on Maui.
Wow, okay. So he'll be going to your show over there. Well, that's very cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So you have a very special connection to the islands. I like that.
Yeah.
And this is a band that very organic sort of thing. Unlike so many other groups, it's a fascinating history with you guys, and it's a new band in a lot of ways. Have you toured outside the U.S. yet?
We've been to Europe and all over Europe, I would imagine. It's just we haven't really made it out to Asia yet.
Okay.
But we're going there, and then on our way back, that's when we'll be in Hawaii.
Right. It's just incredible that so you've done Europe already, and prior to the band coming together in 2012. Explain how, because I was reading a little bit about your bio, your interest in theater, interest in international music, but dial it back to being a little kid and maybe first being exposed to music. Who was it who was exposing you to it, and how?
Well, a lot of it was my father would play tracks, for us. And we always had vinyl around, and as kids, if you find those turntables really fascinating and highly entertaining. So we would always be putting the different records on and slowing them down, speeding them up. And we found that we liked certain tracks a little faster, a little slower, And so there was sort of a versatility, a playground of vinyl, we call it. But and a lot of those albums came from my grandparents too, so you get sort of that muzak from the 70s or the 60s, the tropical feel or the Spanish feel or, or like Xavier Cugat, so fun stuff like that I really like. And, but for the most part, my father was playing a lot of soul and blues stuff, a lot of like Wilson Pickett and a lot of Booker T and the MGs and blues guys like Muddy Waters and Willie Dixon and Howlin' Wolf. So it was just kind of across the board, and I really liked I ended up really like Wilson Pickett, who's one of my favorite singers, and I really liked Aretha Franklin, who was an incredible singer, and even Joe Cocker, So that's kind of where it's all started.
How old were you?
Really. I just don't remember. It's like it's been as long as I've been alive.
Right.
I remember our parents would take us to concerts in strollers.
Wow, that's a very cool thing. Now, what's so not that you'd have the memories precisely, but you would know from them telling you. What are some of the shows your parents took you to when you were in a stroller?
I can't remember. I just remember there was a lot of blues acts.
Okay.
And yeah, my father was. It's kind of always all the time going out to those things, and he plays in 3 bands of his own.
What's he
A
play? What's
lot of
his?
that. He harmonica. He's very attached to the instrument. He dabbled in guitar and bass, but he's always played the harmonica. So there's a certain special thing for me when I hear harmonica on a track.
I can imagine
I
that.
love playing it myself, but I could never work myself to up the work up the
To do it properly.
confidence to play it,
Right.
on stage or anything like that. Yeah, and he's so good. I would hate to, I would have to be at least that good before I felt comfortable. But
Well,
yeah, so he does a lot of blues, a lot of folk stuff. Yeah.
that explains a lot of where some of the musical background for the brothers comes from, actually. So that does give some insight. You haven't given Mom any credit yet so far, and I'm just curious. For me, it was the opposite. It was really my mother pushing the rock, and certainly
Yeah.
she was the one who introduced me, Josh, to Zeppelin when she loved the live version of Stairway from Song Remains the Same. So she bought that.
Oh
So
yeah.
when I was a little boy, that was my first exposure, and I could relate what you meant. It was like worlds, because to me, I'd put on that one side that had Dazed, and it was, as a little like 7-year-old, to me that was kind of like an audio book, because it was like an adventure. It went in all these weird places sonically.
Yeah.
So I think about like where you giving your pop ample credit. Where does Mom fit in?
I think there's a lot of the ideology behind my writing and my mother's, sort of embrace of free thought and it's the importance of exploration and things like that. She's very free spirited, and so there was a lot of you know love and there's a song on the new album that I've written for her. And so I don't know. I think her influence is just as uh, as important as my father's in the way this all kind of is played out.
Makes sense.
I
Makes
must
sense.
have gotten my voice from her anyway.
So before doing the band in 2012, what kind of musical stuff you were already doing theater, I'm assuming. What are some of the plays or other musical things you were embarking on?
Yeah, I was really singing, and I was doing theater and film is my number one passion. I'm an absolute film freak, but I kind of started doing theater, and in theater there was always musicals that they were doing, in that community theater setting, and they kind of ended up doing the acting and singing sort of thing, performing, and we did I remember really liking doing. There was a Willy Wonka musical they did, and I got the lead, and I thought that was such a strange, weird, sort of wonderful world to play in. And so that's kind of like one of those things that you end up kind of starting in one place, and by simply doing whatever you feel is right, you end up somewhere. And it's it was always hard to for me to expect I would be doing one thing or another, but it's like I've done so many things that haven't even been on a bucket list because I never dreamed them up.
Sure. No, things just work their way into your life. So besides the Willy Wonka, what are some of the other stage musicals that you had experience doing?
Well, I did. There's a Seussical the Musical, it's called, and I played the Cat in the Hat in that one.
Oh.
And then I played, which was the hardest thing, when there wasn't this musical, but it was a play. I played a mute king, which I thought was really, really interesting and completely backwards. It was
And
the hardest role I've ever been in.
and those kind of things will help you when you're starting to form what you're going to do with the band, and also having to perform on stage is definitely lends itself to theater. And you guys have, when I see some of the development that's happened with the group, There is this, I saw like a Detroit area Chevy commercial came up. What led to some of the early breaks for the band that when you look back now, you're like, oh, well, we got to meet this guy, or we were at the studio and so showed up. Maybe some of those
Yeah,
things.
there's a lot of interesting intertanglings there, and we weren't signed with a management company at the time we had the Ford commercial come out. So it was kind of like just word of mouth, and that's been a great deal of our success. Is seems to travel verbally pretty quickly, which is really interesting. And thank God for especially those social media, you know, sort of components, because that's also been a big part in radio. Has been a huge part, but it seems like after some time getting in the studio and being with Al Sutton, who's produced everything so far and is going to be producing this next album, that produced the single that just came out. He's kind of got Marlon Young involved, who's the Kid Rock's guitarist,
Ah,
and we went to Nashville and ended up meeting key players, and so it just kind of one person got involved, and then it went to the next and the next. It
right.
kind of really happened over the course of a matter of months.
You guys opened for Seeger last year too. I guess that would be
Yeah.
part of that whole thing. Was that an exciting thing as a Michigan act?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was, and he's the kindest gentleman.
Yeah.
But I remember kind of going in there and just watching sound check, and he ended up kind of like playing "Let It Be" on the piano and smoking a cigarette, and kind of sitting there going, "This is quite special,"
Right.
because it's just us, watching. And he said something along the lines of, "I'm sorry you're taking a little long here. I know you guys have to sound check." And we kind of said, "No, don't worry about us."
Right. That's a
We're
great memory.
perfectly content.
Right. Those are memories that I know what you're talking about. You'll hold on to that for forever, really. And sort of
Yeah.
like probably the similar experience, Elton John. How does he come to invite you to play at his Academy Award party earlier this year, and you end up playing together at the thing?
Well, that's another one. That was we never. Why would you ever put that on a bucket list?
Right.
If you thought it was possible, maybe. But it was kind of our management had gotten a hold of us and mentioned something briefly about it, and we were in the studio working on some stuff in between travel, and our manager called and said that there'll be a call coming in tomorrow at like 10 a.m. And so the next day we got up around 10 a.m. and we thought perhaps it would be, Elton's manager, but we answered and he was, "Hello, boys, it's Elton,"
Wow.
and we kind of just sort of like walked very steadily through this brief conversation because it was kind of impossible to fathom at that moment. And so it kind of developed over time that he wanted to play with us some track of his and a track of ours. He wanted to play one of the songs off of the new album, and we played Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. But so that was pretty amazing. And he's so tender and he's so intelligent and his ideology is so rock and roll, where when we're doing the sound check and kind of going through the tunes, he said, "Well, it's gonna be one of two things. It's gonna be brilliant or it could be a train wreck. But I'm all about both. Either is good.
Brilliant or a train wreck, huh? Is that how he put it?
Yeah.
That's great. That is funny. And that's what, one rehearsal? How much time doing the rehearsal?
I think only about 30 minutes or something. It was real in and out quick.
Unbelievable,
That's all
huh?
it takes, I guess. But
Right.
yeah, his level of musicianship.
You must have just been thinking to yourself, that has to be, I don't know. I mean, is that the biggest moment yet for you guys in terms of getting to do something?
There's been a lot of moments, some of which I kind of forget in time, and they come back to me because it's so fragmented and it's so constantly something going on.
Like, what's another great
But
one that would rival Sir Elton John?
I've got to say that it must be at the top. But
Right.
I do remember, there was we were opening for the Foo Fighters in Canada just a while ago, and there was a crowd of something like 110,000 people, and certainly the most I've ever played in front of. So we went up there and we did the show, and it was great. And afterwards, it was kind of like almost sort of collapsing in the bus or something, and sort of trying to just have some downtime to process what we were just had done. Dave Grohl comes running up on the bus and starts pouring shots of Jaeger. Says, "Oh, it's medicinal," and we go and start talking some film, and he's very playful and full of energy, and then he just kind of left the bus and went on stage and did his show, and I thought, well, that's pretty interesting, secondhand, right?
Amazing. I mean, yeah, no, it's a cool, and with your kind of stories, I didn't know where that was going to go. I didn't know if he was going to drag you up on the stage to play with him, which could happen
I know,
eventually
and
with him.
yeah, there's always something.
Right. No, he loves doing that with those birthday party things. A couple years down the road, you'll be like, "Yep, now I'm at the birthday party with everybody else." That he does those crazy things. Have you gotten to meet the when I was introducing you? I mentioned the self-proclaimed, at least according to Hammer of the Gods, Golden God Robert Plant. Have you gotten to run into him yet?
No, but in due time, imagine, I'd like him to see a show, but I would certainly invite that if he's listening in. But I do remember it was quite funny. We were staying at the park in L.A. and I had gone down to the lobby, and my manager was sitting there on the couch, and he goes, Robert Plant just walked through here about 60 seconds ago.
Wow.
And funny enough, there were some people standing outside with Greta shirts on. I'm sure he saw that. Oh, very lovely.
No, that's too funny. I mean, how did that make you feel when you first saw that video clip where some journalist asks him point blank, "Are there any new up and coming bands that you like?" And then he, on his own, no prompting, no setup, unless the editing is there, he says, "There's this band from Detroit, Greta Van Fleet." I mean, how did that make you feel to see? Because this is a guy, I grew up with them, my brother. I mean, I was like 7 when the record had just come out, Song Remains the Same. My mom had it. It was brand new. So, I mean, like, I've known them I've seen them. I've met Robert several times, seen Paige. I saw the reunion. So, I mean, when you think about this guy who doesn't endorse anybody's thing when they,
Right.
I mean, and I'm thinking, my gosh. So what did that, where were you when you first watched that thing?
I was on a bus in Europe, and Daniel, our drummer, pulls up the clip, because I'm never on social media. I just can't do this stuff.
I agree.
But Daniel pulls it up to show me, and I kind of remember not really having any sort of particular conclusion about how I felt at the video, because it was kind of one of those things that you would have to process, but it's been probably one of the greatest honors of my career to have somebody who has been a great influence, kind of sort of give us any sort of that kind of respect or appreciation. So it's like the warmth, that you feel from that. It's like what Elvis was to Robert Plant. I think Robert Plant could be to us, and so in some way it has that passing of the torch, and you garner a confidence when somebody like that gives you that kind of praise.
No, totally. It's gigantic. But the flip side is, what are you going to do to take care of your voice so that down the road, because in terms of when you think of how he used
Right.
to hit it in the beginning, right? And then you think about now, and a lot of cats, I just point to him as a great example since we're already talking about
Yeah.
him. And like,
Oh, yeah.
what are you going to do? Because I listen to the way you sing, and I like listening to it, but it almost makes me think, man, in 10 years, is his body going to be able to do that? Because it almost sounds like it's like it would hurt your throat or whatever to do what you're doing.
Yeah, well, it doesn't hurt physically. I'm sure there's got to be some painless way to destroy your voice, though. You know, uh,
But you're drinking
so
tea and milk, and what are you doing to like take care of yourself?
I find that tea is such a diuretic, and everything. At the end of the day, tea and vitamins and things just dry me out, so I can't sing on stage as well as I could if I just, you know, stayed with. I keep like warm to hot water, and I hydrate. Trying to be, learning from those lessons of history and being healthier and taking care of my body and my throat. And, honey is always good.
Any coaches, any
And
professionals to kind of give you guidance? Sometimes people hire them to like.
I've gone to this somebody who's taught me a lot about how to maintain my voice and not destroy it. So that's another big important thing. I thought, well, I could be stubborn and say screw it, but as long as you're not telling me how to sing, we're going to be good. You know what I mean?
No, totally. I mean,
And
I just want to hear it, make sure it stays around. Because I hear you and I think,
yeah,
man, that's like this cat is unloading. I hope he's going to be able to do that. Because I think of Robert. You know what's funny? It's really funny how
well, Axl Rose too. We did a show with them in Europe, and I feel really quite bad because his voice is not. It's a little on the fritz these days.
Right. I mean, any of those cats, and that's what we're talking about. Really, is what you were saying, how you take care of yourself, and that sort of thing. And there's a real irony. It's really ironic how I found out about you. A very good friend of mine is a major surgeon here in Honolulu. He's like one of the top thoracic surgeons, and we met at the Led Zeppelin reunion show back in 2007. We were both there from Honolulu in London. And just a few months ago, he asked me if I was going to go see you. And I said, who's that? And he said, oh, you don't know about them. You got to check out this band. You will dig them. And so he's this hardcore Zeppelin fan who I actually met at the reunion, and he's the one who turned me on to you. I thought that was just so ironic. Like, wow.
It is quite, yeah.
I met him
appropriate.
I know, right? It's just a really cool thing like that. So I'd love to have you guys when you're in town. If you have any time at all, I've seen you done some public radio, and you've been supportive of public radio stations. Bless you for doing that.
Absolutely.
If there's any way to have you in our room,
I've got to say that for the most part, at the end of the day, I always go to NPR because I think that a lot of the music that they're playing on the radio anymore is just not for me.
You listen to All Things Considered ever?
I do, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, now you're on it here in Honolulu, and we have a nice studio here. If you some of the cats I know you love, Josh, have been in the room. Taj Mahal, we've had Hot Tuna in there.
Yeah, man.
Ziggy Marley, we've had Lady Smith, Black Mambazo. So
oh my God, those are all the greatest, man. You got me. All right, my heart has been pierced.
I would love to have you visit if there's time. We understand if there isn't, but I just put it out there. I'll reach out to your people, and I hope you had fun talking today. I hope this wasn't a hassle.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you for having me. I'd love to maybe down the road revamp.
No, it would be great.
Aloha. It's Josh Kiska from Greta Van Fleet, and you could not be in a better place. It's All Things Considered on Hawaii Public Radio. We're spending the afternoon with our friend Dave Lawrence. But please make a pledge and become a member today. Here's how, and thanks for giving HPR a helping hand.
You are an animal. I'm giving you a high five, a hug.
Christ. I'm wiping the sweat off of my forehead right now.
You nailed it. Great talking to you, man. I'm really proud of you. You're doing some great stuff, and it's really...
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope we get to see you when you're in town, and travel safe, and just know I really do appreciate you being on. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dave.